And one of the big complaints I hear from conservatives, from Republicans, is Democrats just don't take border security seriously. They just don't. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Well, as a native Arizonan who was born and raised near the southern border, I can tell you unequivocally that the federal government has failed its duty in the last 40 years.
Well, just days after dumping the Democratic Party, Senator Kirsten is calling out the Democrats over the border crisis. She widened it to 40 years. Just look at the last two. Fox exclusively captured stunning new video last night. Yet another caravan. This time, some 2,000 illegal immigrants breaching our sovereignty in El Paso, Texas. And why do we say breaching? Because they're not going to checkpoints that are really set up to handle this thing. They make their own. And they just come without order, knowing that they will never be turned away. It's the largest single mass crossing ever seen at our U.S. border with Mexico. The agents are outnumbered already. Now massive lines outside a facility here that was set up to try to process all these people at the border. Those lines are so long that when it gets a little chilly before dawn, they light fires to stay warm because they're not going anywhere. They're just waiting. Elon Musk, just this morning, replied to Fox's video, tweeting simply, "Wow." A chaotic scene the president still refuses to go see firsthand. And seeing it at a distance obviously isn't helping him make any decisions to clean this up. So he needs to go. He needs to go there. It's set to get even worse, though, in exactly 9 days when the Trump-era Title 42 expires.
He doesn't have any interest in going to the border. But he's had time to visit Delaware 59 times. So it's never been worse than it is right now. It's not a crisis anymore. It's a catastrophe.
David Webb, Fox News contributor, host of the David Webb Show on SiriusXM Patriot. Scott Bolden, former D.C. Democratic Party chairman. Great to see you both. David, I want to welcome both of you, obviously. David, I'll start with you because I haven't seen you in a bit, and this is now cooked to a place where we've never seen it like this.
Yes, but this is deliberate, Harris. Let's look at it for what it is. It's creating a problem that the White House may hope is too big to fix, and they're overwhelming the system they have been. To your point of Joe Biden going to the border, Joe Biden doesn't need to go to the border, in my opinion. The policies that exist, the laws that exist, need to be enforced, and they're not doing that. Kamala Harris is the sheriff of the border czar. She glanced at the border once. Fact is, this serves the Democrats' purpose to overwhelm not just the border, but American communities. All of this has a cost. It has education costs, medical costs, resource costs for these communities all around America. And in 9 days, if this number swells to what's expected, somewhere between 9 and 14, 15,000, or some say up to 18,000 a day, this will be a bigger crisis than the COVID pandemic because we cannot afford the costs of their failures. These migrant caravans, these buses being escorted through Mexico, who's paying for them? Who's organizing them?
Oh, we know it's the cartels.
These NGOs in part are being funded. They're in part being funded by us. There are groups like Pueblos Sin Fronteras out of Chicago. When they come to this country, Catholic Charities, Endeavor, another organization, they received $89 million from the Biden administration for hotels. When you look at this, it's a deliberate policy.
And you have so many details on that. I want to go straight to Scott for his reaction.
Well, it's a humanitarian crisis. It's not a political crisis. This isn't a Republican or Democratic issue.
So can I just step in for a second?
They came under Trump. They came under
not like this.
Republicans.
And we got Title 42 under
we
Trump.
Don't have. Well, let's look. How high or low is
They've
the
been
bar?
coming
Not
for
like
40
this.
years. You heard, and longer than that. That's not the point.
Under
the
Republican
point is how
and Democratic
many
administrations.
and why now. The policies have had a flipping of the switch. And Title 42 is keeping people. By the way, we're at a surge, according to the U.S. government and CDC, of COVID-19 right now. There's no way. I've been there recently, Scott. There's no way you could possibly vet, let alone test all of those people, let alone treat all those people when they come across if they have COVID. But go ahead. I'm curious to know how you think you fix it.
I understand your passion, but the reality is Title 42 was implemented by the Trump administration, and they still came. Here's an idea. Why don't we invest in those South and Central American cities whereby these migrants are fleeing gang violence, economic
You don't
and
think we're
housing
investing
deprivation, and what have
in the
you.
triangle down there?
Well,
That's why we keep going. That's why Kamala went.
Well, we need to do more, if you will, to stem that tide, one. But two, Democrats and Republicans need to invest more in immigration judges and immigration officers and a process, humanitarian process, that will allow them from being overwhelmed. That's a fair
Scott,
assessment.
you hit the nail on the
but-
head. Passion and focus are exactly what we have on this issue because it's like it's not even happening when you change the network.
Yeah, but it
when you
happened
go to
under
a
the
different channel.
administration. It's
And
just
it's
not fair to
happening
blame
to
the
those
Biden
cities
administration.
and counties along the border too. I didn't hear any money from them. Look, the White House wants to spend, as of today, billions of additional dollars on the situation at the border. This is what our money is getting us right now. I don't know if we should hand more money until somebody goes down there and figures out, why
let me
the
ask you
uptick in
this.
border agent suicides recently. You're right, it is a catastrophe and it's heartbreaking. And at the same time, the answers that are out there are like 2 ships passing in the night with this administration. Let's go back to David.
You know, Harris, I'll say this, and it is fact. I have actually met with more Central and South American leaders than this administration. In the past few months, there have been, 4 or 5 different presidents and former presidents, vice presidents. I was just at a conference a week and a half ago with 11 representatives from those nations, all 11 nations. You hear commonalities. There is problem, and there are problems in those countries, and America is absent. So I don't know where he gets the idea that we're down there, because those leaders have told me they don't hear from the Biden administration. Fact is, this is what's happened. It's deliberate policy, and it is not about Title 42. That's a stopgap. This is about border enforcement and U.S. Code immigration law and border agents doing their job. They're not being allowed to do their job. They're babysitters. They're picking up diapers and supplies
more than
when
that.
they should be enforcing border security.
Yeah, they're
you
saving
cer-
lives. They're
you
pulling
certainly can't be
children out of
putting them
the
in
Rio
cages and what
Grande.
have
It's
you.
more than just cleaning up, and that's the heartbreaking part as well. Title 42, when it goes away on December 21st, if it gets worse than what it is from what we saw this morning, Scott, your last quick word. I can't imagine
Why would
the stress for
Democrats-
agents.
Give me the top reason why the Democrats, as a matter of policy, would want that chaos at the border. I'm a moderate Democrat, and I'm looking at the pictures, and I'll be honest with you, my first reaction is, wow, we need to do something about that. Why would the Biden
Is that a
administration
question for David?
not
Because he
wanna
can
do
take
that?
it quickly.
David can
I
take it
can
quickly
answer
or
that
you.
one.
Either
It's
one. That
lip
makes no
service
sense.
from the Democrats. It is lip service because the reality is cities across America, not just at the border, are bearing the cost. Communities, schools, look at the resources being used. This is a deliberate policy by the Biden administration that has made it much worse than the last 40 years. The numbers are there, Scott. If you deny the numbers,
David,
you're denying
making my
reality.
I'm gonna
argument.
step in.
Why would they want to do that if most of those cities that you're talking about bearing the cost
Well,
are
here
democratically
in
run
New York
cities?
City, they've offered for
Ask your
via the new
Democrat
mayor,
colleagues.
via Eric Adams, the new mayor of New York City, for illegals to be able to vote. So there are some reasons politically, but sometimes the reason is because they're incompetent to fix it, and they flip the switch on things that were working.
Well, what
All
are
right,
the
I'll bring you both
Republicans
back
doing
when
about
we
it?
have more time. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.